And so we've been talking about it a lot over the last couple of days, and it's worth repeating here. A lot of the who have you played energy, and it's funny that a lot of people don't understand who creates the NFL schedule. It's not the Bears, believe it or not. The Bears do not go out there and handpick their opponents, and the Bears, they're not the University of Alabama who during the middle of the season say like, you know what, we're gonna play MIT, or we're gonna play some we're going to go out there and play Troy, and no disrespect to the Trojans of Troy, but at the same time, the Bears go out there and they play who they play. And so that's, what do you want them to do? If the Bears were sitting here losing to these teams, if the Bears were not going out there and putting up tremendous numbers against these teams, it would be an absolute red flag. You'd be like, well, Caleb Williams can't even score, 25 fantasy points against. No, he's doing it. He's going out and making things happen, and he's making the plays, and he's doing what it takes to go out there and win these games. It's funny to see now the amount of people who are now having to backtrack and be like, no, I've always said, like, this has been great. Like, well, I never said that this marriage between Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams was not going to work. And I know that Greg Braggs, who's going to be joining us here in a matter of moments, still wants to get back with David Carr to ask him the question, like, how do you think? And I remember the way that David had phrased that. It wasn't that he thought it might not work, but I think for all intents and purposes, it has looked very successful over the first couple of weeks of the season. And so it's something that you're looking forward to continuing to grow. And not only offensively, we're starting to see some possible good news on the defensive side of the football. Can't wait to get into it. So, Sammy, let's go ahead and start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means? It is time for Take It to the Rank. A great evening of Bears talk is going to be happening not only here, but the Tape Never Lies Network will be going on the air in about 60 minutes? 90? I never know. I never know with Phil and Shane, but they'll be going on after us. And of course, we have AEW Dynamite. I am almost completely caught up with the challenge, and I hate it because all my friends, everybody that I like is out, and it's been distracting. But one of the things I do over the last couple of weeks is how well the Bears have been playing. So to help break that down, our co-host, as always on Wednesdays from CHGO, it is Greg Braggs. And Greg, how you living?
I'm living good. I'm living a 6-3 life and just basking in that glory, and now looking ahead to a big divisional game and dreaming of a couple more wins here in the month of November and making December a month to remember.
We go on the air Monday nights, CHGO, for the After Dark show. And of course, I had Ill Will on Monday, talked to Nick Rohde on Tuesday. So I think that we've kind of covered everything that the Bears have done up to this point. It's time now, as you mentioned, for the look ahead to the Minnesota Vikings. One of the most disappointing losses on the season. Obviously, I think like we all went into that Lions game expecting to lose that one. Like, yeah, we'll probably not. Revenge game, Dan Campbell, Detroit home game. Okay, that's understandable. Does the loss in week 1 to the Minnesota Vikings, does it still bother you to this day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's looming, right? It's until it isn't, it's going to be the game that you're worried is what keeps you out of the playoffs. And they have an opportunity this week to wash that out. They have an opportunity over the next 8 games to make that not the case. But when you lose a game like that at home, which people laughed at me at the time when I defined that game as a must win. Not so funny anymore because the Bears could be 7-2 right now had that not been the case. But again, the butterfly effect, as you always like to point out, would have been different. So I can acknowledge that the dominoes might not have laid the
No.
same way. So it could have.
This is one where I think that because they get boat raced, I don't think that anything was preventing us from getting boat raced against Detroit, and they would have responded because week 3 was against the Cowboys. I think they would have responded the same way, and I think like we would just be 7-2 now instead of 6-3.
And I'll concede that if that's the case, just for the for the exercise of this conversation. But at the same time, I do think this is a big game for the reason that this is the first time that Ben Johnson is going to play a team for the second time under this offense here in Chicago. And he's been so great throughout the season on adjustments. And just like week 1 was a pretty formidable test for Ben Johnson in his first game ever as head coach of the Chicago Bears, his first time playing a team for the second time in a season, which is always somewhat of a chess match. Of course, then it is once again Brian Flores again. And so I think this is going to be a really intriguing test. It's on the road as well, which makes it even more difficult. But it's not a game that I think the Bears have no shot in. They certainly have a shot to win this game in a big way. And so what is it going to take? I think what was missing in week 1 was running the football, and had they been able to run the football the way this team has since the bye week 1, I don't think the Vikings were able to mount the comeback that they did. So that's what I'm looking at here this week. Everything last week against the Giants was dependent on Caleb Williams bailing this team out with his arm and his legs. And this week, I think Kyle Monungai and DeAndre Swift need to have a big, big week if they want to take their first divisional game of the season.
Is that what Ben Johnson was talking about? Because he was asked about it. I don't know if it was today, but it was certainly this week, where he said this is a much different team than the week 1 team, but the Vikings are also different. Is this what he's talking about? Is he talking about the run game and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No question about it. We had an opportunity a couple days ago to talk to Cole Kmet on CHGO Bears, and it was really fun to catch back up with him. And that's exactly what he echoed was, it took this team a minute to find this physical identity that they're playing with and that they're believing in, and that has really catapulted them to the 6 of their last 7 wins. And when you come out of the bye the way this team did, and the adjustments they made on the offensive line and the attention to detail on the execution of what they're doing, I think that is exactly what Ben Johnson is talking about, is they are such a different team from their execution point of view, from their trust in each other point of view, from the run game production. And then I also think the chemistry between the quarterback and the head coach. And that, I think, is where I want to take this next, Adam. To me, when you talk about this being a different team and Ben talking about trust, I think Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are right on track, at least in our best expectations of how things could go in terms of how much they believe in each other. And Ben Johnson clearly took this job here in Chicago because he believed that he could do something with Caleb Williams. But there's always going to be the ups and downs along the way, and the trials and tribulations and the adversity you have to go through in training camp and at the beginning of the season. And when you saw some of the NFL film stuff, and Caleb Williams, luckily for us, was mic'd up for one of his best performances, and you see the interaction that him and Ben Johnson have, and Ben Johnson, talking to him in a way that I feel like they're on a whole new level of trust, cohesion, and chemistry that to me might even be ahead of schedule of what some fans were anticipating, or even Ben Johnson was anticipating at this point. And so that's got me really excited.
Yeah. Do we need to call David Carr back up? And do you want to just be like, see, they can get,
I definitely think it would be a good exercise, just because I'm always going to respect a guy like that opinion. And when he said in the summer that he wasn't sure if it was going to be a good marriage because is Caleb Williams the right kind of quarterback for a Ben Johnson offense, that's a fair question to ask. Now, I think what we've seen throughout the season is not just Caleb Williams adjusting to how Ben Johnson wants to call plays on time and in structure and dialing up the explosive plays where your primary read is open, but also Ben Johnson adjusting to Caleb Williams and understanding you can't box a unicorn like Caleb Williams in, because ultimately, yeah, he's going to roll out of the pocket a few times where he should have stayed in a tick longer, but at the same time, you don't want to take that too far out and coach that out of him, because then he's not going to save you from the 8 sacks the Bears should have had on Sunday against the Giants, because he's trying to do what the coach is telling him to do, stay in the pocket at all times. And so that to me is when we tried to understand what the marriage of Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson is. To me, if you watch that final drive against the Bengals, where you've got one play where Caleb Williams saves Theo Benedict and scrambles left, runs right, gets a first down towards midfield, and then on the very next play, a structured, on time, in rhythm throw to Colston Loveland that Ben Johnson said after the game, I was hunting for all game because we were getting that look. Those two plays are the symmetry of what make Caleb Williams great and what makes Ben Johnson great, and ultimately now is going to make the Bears great.
Yeah, it's one of the things that is truly incredible. And I think that it is a fair statement, because I even talked to some of the NFL insiders who I work with who echoed a very similar sentiment to what they were asking, to what David Carr had brought up about, like, well, like Ben Johnson is this guy that likes to lock himself in a room and he emerges late, and it works with a guy like Jared Goff, because Jared Goff is a veteran who understands how to play in this league. So we will see what happens with Caleb Williams. And there's questions about Caleb Williams, and people still, obviously are going to bring up the painted nails and all the other things, and don't understand that you can still go out there and be a dominant quarterback, despite the fact that you do things that you seem a little unorthodox. It's not something that we have not seen in Chicago. Dennis Rodman played here, for crying out loud. So it's not that crazy. Jim McMahon was outlandish for his time. So it is really one of those things. And I don't think that it's necessarily a told you so moment, because I think in David Carr's inference was like, I just don't know, where somebody else on one of the bigger networks might be more definitive and say some things that might want to do. By the way, want to get William Foster in here, who gave a super chat. Thank you, Brad. My God, we got somebody speaking some sense out there in the world. And I think that's what everybody really appreciates right here, is an understanding and the way that this relationship is going. I think for somebody like Ben Johnson, you have a lot of faith in what you can do as a coordinator, and you can get the best out of people, and you can scheme people open and get everybody thing. And Jared Goff is a really good example of what you can do with a player like that. But as you put it, like, Caleb Williams is just on another level. And I've been telling people too, when I was there, I was talking about the Green Bay Packers this week. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, I'd made the point on one of our fantasy shows where I said, the Packers' whole thing with we don't need a number one wide receiver. I'm like, you really do. And I think it's been one of the Packers' detriments of not having that number one wide receiver. And I kept pointing out, like, if you had a quarterback like Caleb Williams, you could get away with that, but you don't. You have Jordan Love, and you need to surround that person with as much talent as possible, because Jordan Love is not the kind of guy who puts a team on his back and carries them over the finish line. I forget, I'm on a Bears show now. Nobody's going to fight me on that. We usually get people to jump in like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? But by the way, in addition to that, I do want to say, thank everybody who is joining in and being a part of the comment section. We do see Bruja7, Shane White, Chai Lewis. Let's look at Chai Lewis's comments. Is 10 wins too much to ask? Ron Winarski, he says no. I think a lot of us say no. Big thanks to Marky Mark, James Dean, and everybody else who's joining us. Roddy, yeah, 10 wins. I think, though, 10 wins is not too much to ask, but I think, Greg, as you're saying, like, this is the one that we absolutely ever, like, it feels like, I feel like I'm the dude on MSNBC who wears the khakis, who's like, the dude on the looks like
what
Brian
is this?
Dable. Which one of us?
I still have a job, all right? What is this?
I don't know. Like, I think I might be the one on the
Fat
left.
Tebow before. I think it's me.
Oh,
he's talking about you. I thought he's talking about me.
I think it's him. I'm pretty sure he's talking about me, especially when I take the hat off. I look like skinny Daboll. When Daboll lost all the weight, I am Brian. This is Brian Daboll. Welcome to the show. Yes, welcome to the Brian Daboll show.
You look like skinny Daboll. I look like fat Tebow.
I've also heard Ozempic Triple H. But in any event,
somebody said Triple H on Monday night in the chat.
Yes. The pathway to victory, it's not impossible. You can lose this week and still achieve 10 wins because it's mathematically possible. However, it feels like if we are going to break that 10-win plateau, and I know you said this was a must-win, but like this really is, like this is it. Like you have to have this game.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, they bought themselves some time by winning the last couple games and moving to 6-3. You can get to 10 wins a few different ways, and maybe you'll lose a game that some might think they should win this week and win a game that some think they should lose, like on Black Friday against the Eagles. That happens every week in football. We've seen the upsets already occur. Who would have thought the Packers would lose to the Panthers at home? Probably Rank. Who would have thought the Dolphins would have beat the Bills? Adam Rank. But outside of Adam Rank, who always knows when the upsets are coming, most of us do not. And the Bears are fully capable of pulling an upset on any of their. And so these games are all going to be a gauntlet here going forward. A lot of teams on this schedule that aren't just divisional opponents are opponents that are currently in the playoffs. So, very few cupcakes, so to speak. And even the cupcakes, as we've learned here this season, whether it's the Raiders or the Bengals or the Giants, they're going to give you a hard time as well. So, we're all in here. I do think, if you had said 3 weeks ago, would 10 wins get you into the playoffs? I don't think the answer was yes, the way the NFC was starting to round into form. But as things are kind of taking place, I think 10 wins could get you in the playoffs. I think it's more realistic now than it was a few weeks ago. So I think that the NFC is starting to level off in a sense. You see the Packers are having their struggles and doubts and questions about themselves. The Vikings are kind of on the ropes here. This is a big game for the Bears to not only win their own divisional game, but maybe throw somewhat of a knockout punch to the Minnesota Vikings, who have been one of the winningest teams in football over the last couple of years. You got the Niners, who lost a game here in the last week that maybe they definitely felt like they shouldn't have lost, or weren't expecting to lose. So things are taking form here, and I think 10 wins certainly is the path. So that means you have to go 4-4 the rest of the way. And it would be a big help if it started here on Sunday. It'd make your pathway the rest of the way a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah, Robert Nash is saying if we go 2-2 in the next 4, then 10 wins is definitely possible. I think that is the pathway to victory. I'm Worm Food says the season we played is not the season we're now facing. Losses are coming. Let's just see how it all looks in the end. Listen, Worm Food, we don't need to be that pessimistic. However, but I do think
that's fine. If he wants to say that, agreed. The first half of the schedule was way easier in terms of opponents than the second half of the schedule. But I'm thanking the schedule makers for that, because look at the injuries the Bears had to go through. All teams deal with injuries, but the Bears certainly dealt with their fair share here. And also the Bears trying to find their identity, and they're, as Ben Johnson said, they're a different team now than they were in the first half of the season. So if you had flipped the schedule from who they're facing to the beginning of the season and flipped it the other way, I don't think the Bears have the same record right now. But you also have to acknowledge, Worm Food, that the Bears are better in some areas than they were at the start of the season. And with the updates we got from Hallis Hall today, seems like there is a very good possibility that Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson could return. Now, will the Bears be in a competitive spot when that happens? Let's hope so. I think Kyler is more realistic to be back sooner than later than Jalen, but I know both guys are rushing to get back. I just think that we have to embrace this journey, and no matter how it shakes out, whether they make the playoffs or not, we are ahead of schedule. This team is exceeding expectations from, I think, any of us thought to start the year. They are 4th in yards. They're 4th in yards, Rank, halfway through the season. Let me tell you, since 2018, where they've ranked per Pro Football Reference in yards per game on offense. 2017, 30th. 2018, 21st, 2019, 29th, 2020, 26th, 2021, they were 24th, and then 2022, 28th, 2023, all the way up to 20th. Yeah. And then last year, 32nd in the league in yards per game. They are now 4th in yards per game. 4th. And they're winning games at the end because of their offense. So, win, lose, or draw, I'm excited for every Sunday because we got ourselves a damn head coach. And now, because of that, he has made this quarterback the guy that we can all believe in and be excited for each week.
Yeah, and it's nice to know there's been 2 weeks this season where in fantasy football, Caleb Williams has been the quarterback 1. He's had over 25 fantasy points in back-to-back weeks after not doing so for quite some time. But I do want to say that Crown Champs has dropped the hottest thing fantasy's ever seen, a real handcrafted premium championship crown. It's just $2.99 a month per person. Rack up points, win weekly challenges, get voted as King, Queen, Trash Talker, and unlock real-life merch. You can get crowns, scepters, robes, all kinds of cool stuff. Don't just go out there and settle for a lame trophy or a GG in the group chat. Don't just go out there and win your fantasy league. Go out there and rule it with Crown Champs, and that's crownchampscompany.com. Also want to give a special shout out to our friends at Huel. These are long during the NFL season, and right now you can try Huel with 15% off for new customers today using the code SICKBEARS at Huel.com/SickBears. Fuel your best performance with Huel today. I'm telling you, on these long days, and I've still got more things going on in my life, I am going to be on the road heading up to Chapman University for my class this evening, and need to make sure that I'm fueled up with Huel. Thank them so much. William Foster is back with the super chat. It's like Draw said before his MVP. Why can't the Bears have a great head coach? Why can't the Bears win the NFC? Why can't we have a real star QB? Why? Well, I will tell you, William, I think it's happening. I think it's happening right now. It's one of those things. I know a lot of people look at the history of the Chicago Bears, and that was one of the big things. People like, they've never developed a quarterback. They never hired a red coach. Those things are true until they're not true. And right now it looks like the Bears have got their guy. Watching the interaction between Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson gives me life. This is a great performative and functional offense. It's been amazing to see what he's been able to do when the chips are down, finding open plays. I know we're so spoiled now to where if we don't pick up every first down, we're like, what's happening? We're expecting it. Like, you expect to go out there. And I think that's the thing. Like, we've raised the expectations. We're 4th in the NFL, as you said, in yards per play. It's just crazy how well things have started to come together.
Yeah, I mean, they're averaging like 28 points per game. We're used to like 18 points per game on offense. So, or if we're averaging over 20, it's because our defense or special teams are scoring, which, it's exciting. I am seeing in the chat, Worm Food saying Caleb Iceman Williams. And this was something I did want to bring to your doorstep is, with this is the week of nicknames, right? Because they're playing JJ McCarthy, who kind of crowned himself as 9, his alter ego. And, obviously there's a lot of Bears fans and fans around the country of other teams having fun with this. Yes. And so now, with the stats and Caleb playing so great in the fourth quarter, this Iceman thing has come out. I've seen some players, I think, call him that in like Instagram comments. I think it was Luther Burden. But then I also saw on the behind the scenes on NFL Film, somebody call him C Willie. And so to me, I think there is a debate here. Like, what do we do with this? Do we shelf the nickname until after the Vikings because of 9 over there getting all the flack? Or do we decide between Iceman and C Willie? Or do we, at least Caleb isn't making his own nicknames at this point. Right. That's what JJ is doing.
Yeah, he's being bestowed nicknames. I think that, and it's actually one of the Vikings fans that I follow who's trying to do the reverse jinx. But if Caleb wins, we will be saying call him 18 because he's twice as good as 9. Like there's going to be that angle right there. I'm also of the mind that we need to do away with any nickname that's like, hey, like it's a variation. They're shorten their name. Like, hey, it's Demont or it's A-Rod or any of that stuff. Like, we don't need that. I think Iceman is super cool. And I think if we started getting it, and again, we should wait. We should not get ahead of ourselves. But if we do improve and wins, then we can go out there and start calling him Iceman to the point that next season we break out all white uniforms and it'll be the Iceman uniforms or go out there and do something like that. I do like the Iceman because I do think, and again, I've talked about this time and time again, is last season, the clutch gene was evident with Caleb. It just wasn't resulting in wins because we were finding inept ways to lose football games. That has been eradicated so far this season with 4 clutch wins. And you can be like, it's against this team. Like, it doesn't matter. You go out and you do it. Like John Elway, Dan Marino, even Tom Brady, these great quarterbacks who had to have so many comeback victories. It's like you're a professional player. You're playing against professionals. There are going to be times when you're down. But if you can go rally yourself, snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat, that is something that is a skill that you want because football is never going to be as easy as you think it's going to be. What do you though? Let me ask you though, before we take a couple more comments here. What do you think of JJ McCarthy? Now I know there's been some there's been some talk because it's Twitter and it's Instagram and all this stuff. I actually I think Caleb, I think JJ's a good player. I thought that people already writing him off as a bust after a couple of games. I'm like, that's insanity. I thought coming out of Michigan, I went back and looked at my mock draft with a twist. I had him going to the Minnesota Vikings. I'm like, he's going to be a fine player. He seems like a Viking type quarterback. Feels like he would work well with KOC. What do you make of JJ McCarthy?
I definitely think it's early to make any, long-term, determinations on JJ McCarthy. I'll say this much. I'm certainly glad that the Vikings didn't find a way to trade up for Drake May. Because that would have been a nightmare, tandem between him and Kevin O'Connell. Now, I think Kevin O'Connell can do wonders with many quarterbacks in this league, and that's JJ McCarthy included. Now, is he a guy that, is going to take some time to develop? I think so. And, he's, from what I've seen of him in limited fashion, I think it's what you see of many young quarterbacks, and he's erratic. There's times where we talk about Caleb Williams and, hey, slow your feet down, slow your mind down, just slow everything down. You're too sped up. When you watch JJ McCarthy, I think you're seeing that, and that I think comes with the territory with young quarterbacks. And so, I think it's, as for defense and Dennis Allen, their responsibility to dial up that pressure, to speed that clock up. But eventually I think he'll figure it out. He's got a great play caller. He's got the weapons with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Hawkinson and the whole deal over there. So, I'm not going to sit here and say he's a bust at this point. That would be silly of me. That being said, I don't think, I don't think he's at a point now where he's feared quite yet. Yeah. I think he's somebody that you should be putting the fear into.
Well, you talked about it a moment ago. Some of the injury updates where Jalen Johnson is now posting Instagram workouts. I don't know if this was because Asante Samuel was in the building, but we're hopeful that Kyler Gordon is going to be back pretty soon. Do the Bears have enough defensively to slow down the Vikings this week?
Yeah, they better. I mean, come on, man. I understand they have injuries and stuff, but this is essentially a very similar defense to what they had week 1. I know they've had a couple injuries here, but at the same time, there's no reason why they can't, have an impact on JJ's day on Sunday. They've got to be able to turn the football over. Nashawn Wright had a pick 6 on JJ McCarthy in week 1. Dio Dangbo actually had a pretty big game week 1. So he's somebody that's not in there. You hope Dominique Robinson can,
but Austin Booker's playing. Austin Booker's playing.
Yeah, Austin Booker's back, and he's had an impact here these first 2 games that he's returned. So that's a good point. Dominique Robinson returned to practice today, I think, in limited fashion. So I don't know if we thought we'd ever say this as Bears fans, but let's hope Dominique Robinson can return. And because he's actually had a decent year, at least, from what our standard of expectation was going into the year for him. Let's hope TJ Edwards didn't practice today, so not sure where he'll be. Noah Sewell certainly didn't have a great day at the office on Sunday against the Giants. But all that being said, CJ Gardner-Johnson wasn't on the team at that time. And then also you just flip it to the other side of the football. The Bears weren't scoring enough on offense. The Bears should have blown the Minnesota Vikings out in week 1 if the Bears offense hadn't stalled for 3 quarters, essentially, after that opening drive. And because of that let the Vikings back into the game and give them enough time to build up their confidence. This time around, if JJ McCarthy's not clicking on all cylinders to start the game, I have a feeling the Bears offense is going to be, because they've really, these last few games, really started to hit their stride, whether it's on the ground or in the air. And Caleb Williams' confidence is at an all-time high. So, and they're, we have been stung by the weather bug all season. It feels like, whether it was at Washington or the Saints game and this last game against the Giants. I think the Bears are going to, as much as it's a tough road environment always in Minnesota, I think they're going to be excited to be playing on fast turf indoors where they don't have to be all bundled up. There was a lot of drops on Sunday, and I know we've had a few drops during the season, but nothing like we saw on Sunday. And while the Giants weren't having this excuse for the cold, I think the cold certainly affected the way the Bears couldn't find a way to catch the football. So I think everyone on the Bears side of things offensively are going to be excited to be indoors.
No, it's very true. And obviously, with the injury reports, DJ Moore is going to be questionable right now. And I don't think that he practiced today, if I was seeing that correctly.
Ooh.
DJ Moore?
Oh, yeah. Well, Wednesday's never a great – every week this seems to be Ben Johnson's process is to sit like 12 guys on Wednesday. And so when Friday comes around, that injury report will be much smaller. I think the only real question is TJ Edwards.
Right. But again, are we going to start seeing more of, because I think that Colston Loveland is getting more involved and Luther Burden III has to start getting more involved. And it might not be to the detriment of DJ Moore. By the way, I was on the fantasy show earlier today and Kimmy Checks is like, you can drop DJ Moore from your roster. And I'm like, okay, that's preposterous. Like it's not a droppable thing right now. You might not want to start him, but it's not a droppable thing. But are we going to start seeing more out of Luther Burden, more out of Colston Loveland? And could that be something that makes this offense even better?
Yeah, I mean, you're already seeing more out of Colston Loveland the last couple of weeks. Even in a slower game, I think he had 4 catches for 55 yards and some big ones at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. So they're looking his way now. They're putting him in a lot of different personnel packages and different usage to try to get him open and get him lined up on some mismatches. Now, Luther Burden versus Olamide Zaccheaus is a different conversation. And you're starting to see that snap usage starting to even out and maybe even eventually turn the tide in Luther's direction. But I will say, like, when people ask, why does Olamide get so many and he needs to be cut off, and let this young rookie who's got a ton of talent shine, I understand why you're saying that. And let's hope he's ready for that. But that's the question is, if you up his snap usage, is he ready for the full playbook? It is because whether we like it or not, Caleb Williams has looked at Olamide Zaccheaus on third down a lot as his security blanket, as somebody that he can trust to sit down in some of those zone coverages and find that soft spot to deliver the football. And Olamide's had some drops, certainly, no question about it, but he also is finding places on the football field to get open. And, Luther Burden has this extreme talent, but sometimes it's also about what on the offense. And so, I think Luther is certainly getting there, or maybe already is there. And maybe it is his turn here this Sunday. We're going to have to find out. But I think now all of a sudden it's become like fashionable to just go after Olamide Zaccheaus after what happened against the Giants game. I still think there's a lot he can bring to this football team. And I would caution Bears fans to just write him off because he is somebody that's really helped in Caleb Williams' development under Ben Johnson's offense since the start of training camp. So I know he didn't have a great game against the Giants. I know he hasn't had the kind of season we thought maybe he could after the training camp he had, but I do think he is dependable in terms of somebody that understands the routes that need to be ran and where he needs to sit down in the right spots, and that unspoken nonverbal chemistry that he has with the quarterback. He just needs to hold on to the football.
Yeah, it's very true. And that's going to be the big test going up. And by the way, obviously with this being a road game, you're probably going to ask yourself, where should I watch the game this weekend? Might I recommend Twisted Shamrock Pub? If you're a real Chicago sports fan, and I'm talking about Bears, Bulls, Hawks, Cubs, White Sox, Skyfire, all those teams, you need to be watching the games at Twisted Shamrock. They've got monster TVs in the private party room, in the main bar, and of course outside on their stellar patio. Swing by Twisted Shamrock, where Chicago sports come together. And remember, I will be there on December 13th, the night before we take on the Cleveland Browns, to be doing a live podcast, a meet and greet, and to be hanging out with all of you before we get an opportunity. This is going to be, I can't remember the last time I was actually in Soldier Field. This is going to be so exciting for me because too often it's going to Arizona, SoFi Stadium, Las Vegas, Santa Clara. It's very rare that it always feels like a home game, which is awesome. But this will be an opportunity to be in Soldier Field for the first time in a long time. Do you
know how to dress for that? Are you prepared?
Like this? What's going to be? The funniest story.
Do you have something? Are you ready for this?
I have snowboarding clothes, so that's just what I wear. I just bring out my snowboarding gear, and I'm ready to go. I do have to wear socks, though. I think that's the biggest adjustment I'm going to have to make. It does remind me of a story that I wasn't around for this. This was my two older sisters, who are much older than me, and my dad took them to a Bears game one time, the fam, and he's like, "Hey, everybody dress warm because we're not leaving early if it gets too cold." And then my dad, being the macho Navy man that he was, wore a windbreaker and froze his butt off, and had to wear that for the whole game. Never again. He always dressed appropriately warm from there on, whether they were going to see the Cubs or any of that stuff. But I want to go through a couple of things here. Chai Lewis says, most important game coming up is Rodgers. We have to beat this man. I will point this out, Chai Lewis. In 2018, when we went to the playoffs, that was a big beating Aaron Rodgers moment. It was a big Aaron Rodgers moment. We beat him. It was the back sack. It was all stuff. It used to be my screensaver for the longest time. It should be a poster that I have up behind me. But Khalil Mack doesn't play for us anymore, so it's not as cool. Chicago Sports Podcast is chiming in with a score prediction. Bears 34, Vikings 21, Bear down. Thank you so much to the Chicago Sports Podcast. I will say the Dirty Dog brings up this point where he says the Bears are a better team than they were in week one. The Vikings are arguably worse off than they were. The only thing I'm worried about is false start penalties in that loud environment To me, have the penalty, is it my imagination or the penalty's been getting a little bit better? Like it doesn't feel.
They have been.
I
The
feel
last
like
3 games, it's gone from 10 to 7 against the Bengals to 3 here against the New York Giants. So it has
the Giants had a ton. The Giants had a ton.
Yeah, they definitely did, and some big ones at the end of the game that cost them. So I think there's been progress there. I think that's a fair argument. I mean, I think Jonathan Grenard, I didn't get the injury update on the Vikings side of things, but I think it was kind of assumed that Jonathan Grenard, who's their, vaunted pass rusher, who has given the Bears definitely some big problems on that defensive line. I think he's going to be out on Sunday. I guess we'll have to, I'll double check that here while we're finishing up this show, but they have some different guys on that defensive line that have given the Bears problems, but Jonathan Grenard's at the forefront of that. And if he's not there, then that's somebody they're also going to be missing from week 1. Now, they didn't have Harrison Smith week 1. And, as an Irish fan, Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan, and somebody that, don't shake your head at me. And so
he had you don't want him to play because he's a guy who injures our players.
Well, I agree. That's what I'm saying. That to me, I think is going to make them better here on Sunday, or at least more dangerous. He's been in the league a long time.
Well, remember his late hit on Mitch Trubisky back in 2018 was one of the reasons why we had to start Chase Daniel against the New York Giants, a game that we lost, and it ended up costing us the Super Bowl. No, but it did cost us the number 2 seed. I think that's fair to say. And it was Harrison Smith with his late hit that, of course, was not flagged, but probably would have drawn him.
Why would it be? I mean, you can just knee Caleb Williams in the head. You can lay out Mitch Trubisky. Justin Fields is still getting hit after the whistle. It doesn't. If you are a Bears quarterback, or if you've ever been a Bears quarterback, or if you're thinking about being a Bears quarterback, then you are allowed to be hit after the whistle. You can be driving home from work at Hallis Hall, and somebody could Goldberg spear you, and there's going to be no penalty, no ticket given out. Doesn't matter. It's all completely inbounds. Bears quarterbacks just have to deal with it.
They do have to go out there and wear it. True Pilgrim 144. The only team in the NFC that scares me is Seattle. You know what? I know it sounds like
Sam Darnold.
You're Sam Clemente Darnold. You know what? I know it sounds a little bit like hyperbole, but really, I feel the same way. When everybody comes out and they're like, the schedule is so tough, I'm like, why do we say the schedule is? I get it. They're NFL teams, but it's not like any one of these NFL teams are out there dominating. Like, I know the Philadelphia Eagles will be favored on Black Friday, but I don't think that that's a game where you're like, well, we're writing that one off for sure. Detroit coming to Chicago, I don't think that that's one that we need to absolutely concede to them. The Packers, we could have easily swept them last year. I mean, we could have easily been swept, but still, we were competitive with them last year. Cleveland's got a great defense, but Dylan Gabriel does not scare me. I'm sort of feeling that. I do want to ask you, though, has it been nice over the last couple of days seeing all the S that the Packers and Matt LaFleur, even Betancourt himself, a former Packers backup quarterback, called LaFleur a douche? Like, has it been fun to watch this infighting? Did you not see that?
I didn't
I don't
see
know.
that.
I don't know if that was fake or not.
Right. He called him a douche. I love it. It's sounding the alarms in Wisconsin. And that's tough. I really feel for them. It's interesting to watch it all unfold. It's kind of funny as a outsider. I've never really bought into the Jordan Love sucks moniker that Bears fans have always said about him. But that being said, what do I know about quarterbacks? I'm a Bears fan. Like, I see a guy that can complete a pass and I'm like, well, he's pretty good, and then I see Packers fans in the discourse after the game here against the Eagles. And I was watching that Eagles Packers game and I tweeted out, I'm like, is this really bad offense or really good defense? Like I I was like, what is going on here when you're watching the Eagles and Packers not be able to move the football? You think they're going to end in a 0-0 tie the way it was being played. But that being said, it is oddly familiar, the conversation surrounding, is it the quarterback or is it the head coach? It reminds me of a lot of conversations we've had here in Chicago. And I think the scary answer for Green Bay fans is it could be both. And you're not going to know until you take one from the other and really try to figure out the common denominator of the problem, the root of the problem.
Right.
But now you've paid Jordan Love, so it doesn't seem like he'd be the first guy. Because in Chicago, this is what we're used to. It's coach, then coach on the chopping block, then quarterback on the chopping block, then new coach. It's a cycle. It keeps going back and forth once you get into quarterback hell, which we've been in my entire life. So, okay, get rid of Matt LaFleur, but then you bring in a coach, and now you found out, oh, wait, it's actually Jordan Love is also he's also bad. And now you got to get rid of Jordan. And then all of a sudden the next coach that came in is coming in with his quarterback, and he's somewhat run out of time. And that thus starts the cycle of quarterback head coach hell. That's where I think Packer fans should be worried. That being said, I think LaFleur is a good play caller. The way Jordan Love isn't afraid to throw in any window, I've always felt like he's a pretty decent quarterback, but they don't feel that way in Green Bay right now. They're trying to figure out answers, and I'm just sitting back, relaxed, being thankful for Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. And I'm not gonna say anything more to it than that, other than it's a cautionary tale, and things look a little familiar up in Green Bay.
I'm just sitting here minding my own business. I am having a good time, just enjoying everything the way that it goes. And Sammy did get it is an actual real tweet. Here is Ben Kurt. You're welcome, Green Bay. Trey says, this is legit. This is from his account. You see the blue check mark right there. Nah, he's just a douche is all. So the infighting, the calls are coming from inside the house. And Kurt's actually been very effusive in praise of Caleb Williams. I think that he said recently, like, hey, it's a problem that, Caleb Williams is starting to look really good, starting to do some things that would worry you if you were a fan of one of the other teams in the NFC North, that, hey, maybe this guy is pretty good because he's doing some nice things. And again, that's not to say that Jordan Love's bad or that Jared Goff's not bad. This is it's an interesting way. It's interesting the way this is all starting to come about. And it's fun to see the Packers on the edge of it, because the memes on Monday night were hilarious. I know that when I went home and I watched the game, like the memes and all the things that were drawn from that very same screen grab of LaFleur going back and writing on his note. It's so performative at this point. Like, it's just such a show. Like, oh, look at me grinding away. LaFleur reminds me of the kind of guy who walks around on Friday being like, TGIF, the grind includes Friday. Like, all right, we got it. Go out there and do your thing. But again, I think that this all started with us talking about there's really no reason that we have to fear everybody in the end. They're tough games. It's not none of those games are easy wins or anything, but also to the same point of like, we should never concede to be like, well, we're not beating them. We're not as good as them. There is nobody.
No, not at all. I mean, we have Ben Johnson. Like, he's going to have this team prepared. He's got Caleb Williams locked in. Caleb Williams is playing at a high level right now and has an unbelievable amount of confidence. This, to me, even look at the one game they've lost. 6 of their last 7 they've won. The one game they lost to the Ravens. The Ravens are probably going to win that division now. And I know Lamar Jackson didn't play in that game, but I think that defense at the time had really bad statistical rankings, but
Yes.
wasn't really indicative of the defense that we actually faced.
No,
So
not at all.
maybe I'm being a complete homer here, but we have reached the meatball, portion of the hour. But
Right.
okay, the Giants aren't a good team. They played well against the Bears at Soldier Field on both sides of the ball. They had a good game plan. So while they haven't been a good team all year, they did. Oh, you say the Bears have no chance of beating the Eagles. The Giants beat the Eagles. I understand they had a couple, Cam Scattaboo at the time, but they beat them pretty handedly. And so it's any given Sunday. And I don't think the Giants, while their record doesn't show great, they're not a fun team to play. They've got a lot of talent, especially when Jackson Dart is available. And then the Bengals game too. Their record's been torched because they lost Joe Burrow and they played, Jake Browning for a while. But when the Bears played him, Joe Flacco had his best game he's ever played in his career. So like you can say they've played bad teams, and that's not a false statement. But I would say the bad teams they've played pretty well the day they played them. And if you want to put all that on the Bears being bad or lucky, you can, but it's any given Sunday. Bad teams play well, at times. It happens, and we see it every week. The Bills just lost to the Dolphins, who are terrible. So it happens, guys. And so, at some point, you do have to give the other team a little credit at times. Are the Bears having some good fortune? Sure. But I also think that it hasn't been all luck either. They've won some of these games on their own volition by taking the game at the end, not having the other team just give it to them.
Yeah, it's one of those things too, because last week when I was talking about, people were discrediting the Bears for winning last week, and it was Packer fans, and I'm like, shut your mouth, because you guys just lost to the Carolina Panthers. What? That's a good team. You must not know ball. That's a good team. And then the Panthers go out and lose to the New Orleans Saints.
Bingo.
So maybe they're not that good of a team. So maybe
they lost to the Browns. They were on the cusp of losing to the Arizona Cardinals with Jacoby Brissett. They tied with the Cowboys. The Bears smoked the Cowboys. So we can play this transitive property game all we want. But at the end of the day, you can watch box scores and you can watch the final score results week to week and make your determination on who's good, who's bad, and who's lucky. All I know is the Bears might not be a great team. I know they're a good team, and that makes me excited for every single game day.
Yeah, Melon Smasher pointed out the 49ers have 6 wins right now with this remaining schedule. The Arizona Cardinals, Carolina, Cleveland, Tennessee, Indianapolis, Chicago, Seattle. That's 11 wins, I find, for the 49ers. You know what? Seattle is also an easy schedule. They have 7 wins. I think Seattle, again, is going to do it. I don't know why you're conceding a lot of these games to the 49ers. I don't think we lose to the 49ers. I get a lot of 49er fans in my mentions being like, week 17, we play you. I'm like, I know. I'm good with it. Like, again, we'll see what the situation looks like. But ever since Fred Warner went down, this team has looked a lot different. I don't think that they're going to go. I know that they're winning despite the injuries, but I think eventually that is something that could run out of time. Not saying that they're bad, and not saying that the 49ers can't go out there and get 11 wins, because they certainly could. They could beat Indianapolis. They might not lose to them. They should be beating Cleveland, but we just don't know. And it's just difficult to get here and start to get into this game. I think that, the 10-win theory is a pretty good one. Get to double-digit wins, see what happens, find the pathways to victories, find the spots where you think the Bears could win. I think that, this week, Minnesota, if we end up splitting with all of our divisional opponents, we end up going 3-3 in the division, because the way the schedule works out, that would be 3 more wins. That would get us to 9. Then you need to get a win out of the combination of Cleveland, Pittsburgh, or San Francisco,
and the Browns.
Cleveland, Pittsburgh,
San
Francisco.
Oh, I see. And that's it. We don't have another opponent that I'm not thinking of.
What are we? 6 more games for 6? No, there's got to be somebody I'm not thinking of. Somebody will hit it in the chat. I'm missing somebody, but still, like, that is we're so close. Like we're really like
Philly.
Yeah, that's
right.
I
knew there was another one.
There's another one, but again, that's the one where you're sort of like, that's going to be a really tough one. There it is. Thank you, Pete. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Johnny. Okay, we got it. I think there is a real chance. There's a real possibility right there. I don't think that the schedule.
When you're in a game, you have nothing to lose. Those games are fun.
Yeah.
Those games can be fun at times. I'll tell you what, if the Bears find a way to win their next 2 games before that Philly game, you're going into Philly with house money on a short week. I'll take that all day. I'll take that all day. But let's get these first 2 games out of the way first. But I'm with you, man. Hey, 3 win. You beat the Vikings. You split with the Packers, and final week of the season's against Detroit. And Detroit having to make a decision. Do they want to play their starters? Like, I think at this
point,
might have. Right. If Detroit's running away with the division, so be it. And then do they, that would be, I mean, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but just for the sake of conversation and fun hypotheticals, if it came to that point and they weren't playing for something because they're clinched a bye, but the Bears are playing for something to get in, does Dan Campbell, as the meatball type like us, that's going to want to play his guys, keep Ben Johnson out? I could see it, but the Bears are an extremely physical team, and Detroit has bigger fish to fry to win a Super Bowl. There is a risk there as well. It would be interesting to see the calculus with that decision. I'm assuming Dan Campbell would want to throw the knockout punch to his old friend in Ben Johnson and not let Ben in his first year, have that glory. But hey, if we get to that point and that decision's on the line and it's in Chicago in the cold for the chance to go to the playoffs, man, sign me up. Sign me up. I'd give anything for that scenario.
Yeah, and I would say too that Jared Goff has done a pretty nice job over the last couple of years of shedding the indoor cat label that I bestowed upon him. But again, I'll take it. The cold, the winter time in Chicago, I think it would probably be, we don't have that many games in the winter this year, but yeah, that would be the wintertime game. We'll see what happens. Roll the dice, Jared Goff. Oh, would be something. In that San Francisco game, again, as Melon Smasher says right here, it is December, January, February league. Real dogs of the league hunt the pretenders down in December. That stretch is going to be pretty tough. There we go. This Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Green Bay is the most meaningful football since 2018. I will say this too. I want to go research this. I want to go look this up because I think like the Black Friday game, and I don't know how this has gone over the last couple of years. Somebody will look this up probably as I'm speaking, but it's like, I feel to be on the road for that. And because like there's too many distractions of being at home on Black Friday. You get family that want to go do stuff or whatever. Oh, Ronnie's got a thing. Do you guys think Bears are going to win the division? I would say I'm getting us for at least 10 wins. It would take a collapse by the Lions for them not to get double-digit wins.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a collapse. They're 6-3, just like the Bears are right now. I mean, I wouldn't say I don't know if collapse is the right word. It's certainly possible.
3-5. Yeah.
It's certainly, I mean, this is the NFL, guys. Anybody can win or lose, and injuries are another big factor that you have to take into consideration. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Let's let the Bears win these next couple games here, this week, next week, and we can start talking big dreams. I mean, right now they're 6-3, and the best team in the NFC has 7 wins. And again, going back to that week 1 game, woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Son of a gun.
But man, the Bears could be the best team in the NFC right now if things had gone a certain way. But I'll take where we're at right now because the Bears have certainly had some good fortune on their side of things of games they woulda, coulda, shoulda lost too. So it evens out at the end of the day. And now let's see if the Bears can take it on their own volition the rest of the way.
And that sounds like a great spot to stop. Thanks so much, Greg, for being here again on a Take It to the Wake Wednesday. Catch him later this week on CHGO. Make sure you like and subscribe. to the podcast and all that good stuff, wherever you find your fine podcast. Maybe go out there and review it and say, hey, not a bad show. More people should check it out. So thanks to everybody who joined us here this evening. For Greg, I'm Adam. Bear down. And Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.